The paralegal looked up from her computer screen with an expression I recognized immediately, confusion bleeding into concern. "Ms. Whitmore," she said, adjusting her glasses, "there's a lien on this property that wasn't here 6 months ago." I set my coffee down carefully on the glass table. My hands were steady. They'd been steady for weeks now, ever since I'd stopped pretending this was an accident. "What kind of lien?" I asked. She turned the monitor toward me. "A refinance, through Summit Pacific Credit Union, originated 3 months ago. Principal amount, $280,000. The number hung in the air between us like smoke. I owned my house outright, had for 11 years. The mortgage burn ceremony happened on my 42nd birthday. Just me and a bottle of cheap champagne on the back deck, watching the sun set over the canyon. No debt, no liens, no strings. Until now. "That's impossible," I said, though we both knew it wasn't. The paralegal, a woman named Claudia, who'd seen enough fraud cases to recognize one instantly, leaned back in her chair. "Ms. Whitmore, do you have any family members with access to your personal documents?" I thought about my sister's bright, performative smile, the way she'd asked to borrow my passport last spring, just to check something for travel insurance. How she'd returned it a week later with a casual thanks and a hug that felt rehearsed. "Yes," I said quietly. "I do. My name is Natalie Whitmore. I'm 53 years old, and I've spent most of my adult life learning how to be the dependable one. The one who shows up. The one who handles things quietly while everyone else lives loudly. I work as a senior editor for a medical publishing house, the kind of job that requires precision, patience, and an understanding that nobody will ever remember your name, even though the work matters. I've always been fine with that. Visibility never interested me. Stability did. My house sits on a half-acre lot in Marin County, California. It's a modest ranch-style home with redwood siding and a garden I've tended for over a decade. The property appreciated significantly over the years, but I never thought of it as an investment. It was just home. The place where I drank my morning coffee, where my dog died on the kitchen floor at 15, where I'd built a life that required no one's approval but my own. My younger sister Vanessa took a different path. She married young, divorced expensively, remarried quickly, and spent her life chasing the kind of lifestyle that looks impressive in holiday cards but collapses under scrutiny. She lived in San Jose in a rental she could barely afford, drove a leased BMW, and had 2 teenage sons who'd learned early that image mattered more than substance. We weren't close. Not in the way people assume sisters should be, but we were connected by the mechanics of family. Shared holidays, obligatory phone calls, the unspoken agreement that you show up when summoned because that's what decent people do. 3 years ago, Vanessa's second husband, a tech middle manager named Derek, lost his job during a round of layoffs. The financial spiral was immediate. They burned through savings, maxed out credit cards, and within 18 months were facing foreclosure. Vanessa called me at work one afternoon, her voice tight with manufactured calm. "Nat, I need to ask you something and I need you to just listen." I'd heard that tone before. It was the same one she'd used when she needed me to co-sign her first apartment lease at 22. The same one when she'd asked for a loan to cover her divorce attorney. "Go ahead," I said, already closing the document I'd been editing. "Derek and I are in trouble. Real trouble. The bank's moving forward with foreclosure. We've tried everything, refinancing, forbearance, but our credit is destroyed. We're going to lose the house, Nat. The boys are going to lose their home." I waited. "I need to ask if you'd consider a temporary arrangement, just until we get back on our feet. If you could co-sign a small home equity line, just enough to buy us time to restructure." "No," I said. The word landed heavy. Final. "Nat, please, I'm begging you. It's my kids, your nephews." "I'm sorry you're going through this," I said, meaning it, "but I can't leverage my home for your debt. That's not reasonable to ask." The silence stretched long enough that I thought she'd hung up. "Fine," she said finally, voice cold. "I guess I know where I stand." She hung up before I could respond. I didn't hear from her for 6 months. Not at Christmas. Not on my birthday. The silence felt pointed, punitive. But I'd made peace with it. Some boundaries cost relationships, that's the price. Then last spring, Vanessa called again. Her voice was different this time. Lighter, apologetic, warm. Nat, I'm sorry, I've been horrible. I was so stressed and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. It's okay, I said cautiously. How are you managing? We're figuring it out. Derek got a contract position. We're working with a credit counselor. It's slow, but we're climbing out. She sounded genuine, relieved, human. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it. Listen, she continued, I know things have been weird between us and I want to fix that. Can I come by this weekend? Just to talk. No agenda. I miss you. I hesitated, but loneliness is a quiet thing. It builds slowly and sometimes you don't realize how heavy it's gotten until someone offers to lift a corner of it. Sure, I said. Saturday afternoon. Perfect. She arrived with flowers and apologies. We sat on the deck, drinking iced tea, talking about nothing important. She admired the garden. She asked about work. She seemed softer than I remembered, less performative. At one point, she asked if she could use the bathroom. I pointed her toward the hall. When she returned, she hugged me before she left. Thank you for not giving up on me, she whispered. I watched her car disappear down the street and felt something cautiously hopeful stir. 2 weeks later, she called again. Hey, weird question. I'm applying for this travel insurance policy for a trip Derek and I are planning, and they need verification documents. Do you still have that old passport of mine I left at your place years ago? I think it might be in your filing cabinet. I frowned. I don't think you left a passport here. Oh, maybe I'm misremembering. Could you check? They need it by tomorrow and I'm drowning in paperwork. If it's there, could I swing by and grab it? I'll be in your neighborhood anyway. It felt harmless, small. The kind of favor you do for family without overthinking it. Actually, she added, I might have mixed things up. Could I just borrow yours to check the format? I need to see how the personal information section is laid out. I'll bring it back in a day or two. I should have said no. I didn't. She picked it up that evening, returned it 4 days later with an apology about getting sidetracked. I glanced at it briefly, saw nothing obviously wrong, and filed it away. I didn't think about it again until the day I sat across from Claudia, staring at a refinance document I'd never signed. If you've ever had someone close to you cross a line you didn't even know existed, leave a comment below. Sometimes the worst betrayals come from the people we're conditioned to trust. Walk me through what happens now, I said to Claudia. She pulled up a document on her screen. First, we need to confirm the forgery. You'll need to provide verification that you didn't authorize this loan. Then we file a quiet title action, a lawsuit asking the court to clear the fraudulent lien from your property. How long does that take? Months. Maybe longer if Summit Pacific fights it. And they will, because if they admit the loan was fraudulent, they're liable for their failure to verify. What about criminal charges? Claudia's expression softened. That's a separate process. You'd need to file a police report for identity theft and forgery. The district attorney would decide whether to prosecute. I nodded slowly. My sister's face flashed through my mind, her bright smile, her nervous energy, the way she'd hugged me before leaving with my passport. I need copies of everything, I said. Every document tied to this loan. Claudia slid a folder across the desk. I pulled what I could from public records. The loan application, the recorded deed of trust, the notarized signature pages. I opened the folder. The loan application listed my name, my address, my social security number, employment verification from a company I'd never worked for, bank statements I'd never generated, and there, on the signature page, was a version of my signature that looked close enough to pass a casual glance, but wrong in ways only I would notice. The slant was too aggressive, the loop on the W too tight. This isn't my signature, I said. I believe you, Claudia said, but we'll need a forensic handwriting analyst to confirm it for court. I kept flipping through the documents. The loan had been originated through a mortgage broker named Pacific Gateway Solutions. The notary who'd supposedly witnessed my signature was listed as Sandra Yee, commission number visible in the corner of the page. I pulled out my phone and Googled her. Sandra Yee was a mobile notary based in San Jose. Her website advertised fast, professional service. She had a 5-star rating on Yelp. I called her number. She answered on the second ring. Sandra Yee, Mobile Notary Services. Hi, my name is Natalie Whitmore. I'm calling about a notarization you performed 3 months ago on a refinance document. There was a pause. Can you give me more details? I rattled off the date and property address. One moment. I heard her typing. Yes, I have that file. Is there a problem? I didn't sign that document, I said evenly. I was never present for that notarization. The silence that followed was thick. Ma'am, Sandra said carefully, I take my work very seriously. I verified ID, watched the signature happen in person, and recorded everything according to state law. What ID did you verify? A California driver's license and a passport. Describe the person who signed. Another pause. I'm not comfortable discussing this over the phone. If you believe there's been fraud, you need to contact the authorities. I will, I said. But I need to know. Was it a woman? Mid-40s? Blonde hair? About 5'6"? Sandra's voice tightened. I'm ending this call. Contact my attorney if you have further questions. She hung up. I set the phone down and looked at Claudia. She verified ID. Whoever signed used my documents. Your sister? Had to be. She's the only one with access. Claudia made a note. We'll need to subpoena her records. If she has a log or photos from that day, it might confirm who was present. I closed the folder. My hands were still steady, but something cold had settled in my chest. What do I do first? File the police report. Today. Then we start the quiet title action. But Natalie, Claudia leaned forward, you need to be prepared for how ugly this gets. If your sister forged these documents, she committed multiple felonies. The police won't ignore that. I thought about Vanessa's sons, about the shame that would follow them, about family gatherings that would never happen again. Then I thought about the $280,000 loan secured against my home. The home I'd worked 20 years to own free and clear. File everything, I said. I want it documented. By the time I left Claudia's office, the sky had turned that particular shade of grey that makes Northern California feel heavier than it is. I drove home slowly, my mind running through logistics. The police report would trigger an investigation. The quiet title action would alert the bank. And Vanessa would know, the moment either happened, that I'd discovered what she'd done. I needed to be ready for that conversation. But when I pulled into my driveway, I saw her car already parked in front of my house. She was sitting on my porch steps, arms wrapped around her knees, looking smaller than I remembered. I sat in my car for a moment watching her. She didn't look up, didn't wave, just sat there, waiting. Finally, I got out. She stood as I approached. Her face was pale, her eyes red. You know, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Yes. She looked down at her hands. I'm sorry. The words felt empty, performative. How long have you known I'd find out? I asked. I didn't think you would. Not this fast. The loan was supposed to go into forbearance. Derek said we'd have time to figure it out before it hit your credit report. Derek, I repeated. So this was his idea. It was both of us, she said quickly. I'm not blaming him. You used my passport. You forged my signature. You put my house at risk for a loan I didn't authorize. I know, and I'm so sorry, Nat. But we were out of options. The bank was going to take everything. The boys would have had to switch schools, leave their friends. I couldn't let that happen. So, you decided to risk mine instead. She flinched. I thought we'd pay it back before you ever noticed. Derek has a new position starting next month. We were going to... Stop, I said. My voice was calm. You're not paying it back. You can't. You barely kept your own mortgage afloat. This loan is $280,000. Where exactly did you think you'd find that kind of money? She didn't answer. You didn't think, I continued. You just took what you wanted and hoped I wouldn't find out. Nat, please. I'll fix this. I'll go to the bank. I'll explain. You can't fix this. The loan is recorded. The lien is on my property. You committed fraud, Vanessa. Multiple felonies. Her face crumpled. Are you going to call the police? I looked at her for a long moment. I already did. The colour drained from her face. What? I filed a report this afternoon. Identity theft, forgery, fraud. They'll be contacting you. Nat, no. Please. The boys should have thought about them before you forged my signature. She grabbed my arm. You can't do this. I'm your sister. I pulled away gently. That's exactly why this hurts. I walked past her, unlocked my front door and stepped inside. She stood on the porch calling my name. I closed the door. Through the window I watched her sit back down on the steps, head in her hands. She stayed there for almost an hour before finally driving away. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel righteous. I just felt tired. The police investigation moved faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks, a detective named Ramirez called to inform me that they'd confirmed the forgery through handwriting analysis and witness statements. Sandra Yee, the notary, had been cooperative once she realized she'd been duped. She'd kept meticulous records, including a photocopy of the ID she'd verified, my driver's license and passport. But the photo on the license, when compared to DMV records, didn't match me. It matched Vanessa. She'd used a fake ID with my information and her photo. That's sophisticated, Detective Ramirez said. This wasn't impulse. This took planning. What happens now? I asked. We're forwarding the case to the DA's office. Given the amount and the premeditation, they'll likely file charges. Grand theft, identity theft, forgery. She's looking at significant prison time if convicted. I thanked him and hung up. That night my phone rang. Vanessa's number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Nat, the police came to the house today. They questioned Derek. They took documents. The boys are terrified. Please, please call me back. We can fix this. I'll do anything. I deleted the message. The quiet title action moved slower. Claudia warned me it would. Summit Pacific Credit Union fought back hard, claiming they'd performed due diligence and weren't liable for the fraud. They're arguing innocent lender status, Claudia explained during one of our meetings. Basically, they're saying they had no reason to suspect fraud because the notarization appeared legitimate. But they didn't verify anything beyond that, I said. Correct, and that's our leverage. California law requires lenders to exercise reasonable care. We'll argue they failed that standard by not contacting you directly or verifying employment through independent means. The case dragged on for 7 months. During that time, I received calls from family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins, an uncle, Vanessa's ex-husband. All of them wanted the same thing, for me to drop the charges. She made a mistake, my cousin Andrea said, but she's still your sister. Do you really want to send her to prison? Do you really want me to lose my house? I countered. Andrea went quiet. That's what you're asking me to risk, I continued. My home, my security, because she decided her crisis mattered more than my stability. She was desperate. So that makes fraud acceptable? Andrea didn't call back. The hardest call came from Vanessa's oldest son, Tyler. He was 17. Aunt Nat, he said, his voice shaking. I don't know what happened between you and Mom, but please, please don't do this. She's a mess. Dad's a mess. We don't know what's going to happen to us. I closed my eyes. Tyler, I'm sorry you're in this position, but your mom made choices that hurt me. I'm protecting myself. But we're family. Family doesn't steal from each other. He hung up. I sat in the silence of my living room, the late afternoon light filtering through the blinds, and let myself feel the full weight of what I'd set in motion. There was no going back. Eventually the court ruled in my favour. The refinance was declared void. The lien was removed from my property. Summit Pacific was ordered to absorb the loss and reform their verification processes, and Vanessa was charged with 4 felonies. She accepted a plea deal, 3 years in prison, restitution, probation. Derek was charged separately for his role in planning the fraud. He received 2 years. The day Vanessa was sentenced, I sat in the back of the courtroom. I didn't testify, didn't make a statement, just watched. She looked small at the defendant's table, diminished. When the judge announced the sentence, she didn't react, just nodded. As they led her out, she glanced back. Our eyes met. I didn't look away. I'm not sure what she expected to see. Regret, guilt, triumph. All she got was the truth. I had protected what was mine. It's been 2 years now. My house is still mine. The title is clean. The garden thrives. Vanessa is halfway through her sentence. I've received letters, forwarded through her attorney. I haven't opened them. Tyler graduated high school. I sent a card with a check for college. He cashed it but didn't respond. I don't blame him. People ask if I regret it, if I wish I'd handled things differently. The answer is no. Not because I'm cruel, not because I wanted to punish her, but because the alternative was letting someone take what I'd built, simply because they believed family meant they were entitled to it. I spent 20 years working toward security, toward a life where I didn't owe anyone anything. Vanessa tried to turn that security into her escape hatch, and when she did, she stopped being family. She became a thief. The hardest lesson I've learned is that loyalty without boundaries is just permission to be exploited. And some people will always choose to exploit you if they believe you'll never fight back. I fought back. Not with anger, not with revenge, just with the law. And when the dust settled, the only thing left standing was the truth. I owned my house. I always had. And no one, not even blood, had the right to take that from me.